Okay, good morning. Dr. Rusty here on the live line. 22 minutes away from 9. We are making our way through this Friday. We're going to talk about dogs today with a little bit of a different twist, though. It's people training for good dogs. What breeders don't tell you and trainers don't teach you. Stop barking at your dog, as they might bite back. And on the line with us is Melissa Berryman. She's a Massachusetts Animal Control Officer from 1993 to 1998, a National Dog Bite Consultant as well, works with rescue groups, dog owners, and bite victims, and the website is melissaberryman.com. Melissa, welcome to Liveline. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing great today.
You know, you work with rescue groups and things like that, and I guess one of the things is, you know, kind of maybe a starting point for this. Now we have a rescue dog. We have a little dachshund that's a rescue dog.
Great.
We still call him Puppy, but he's probably about 9 years old now, I think. A lot of people are concerned that when they get rescue dogs, or if they go to an animal shelter to get a dog, that they're going to be, you know, maybe have more active dogs. They're, you know, maybe going to, you know, be not quite as trained. Let's put that to rest, because that's really not true, is it?
It is also very important for everybody to know that you need to work with the dog. And regardless of whether it's been at a shelter and rehomed because it was surrendered, you need to build up your relationship and record over anything that's happened in the past. And sometimes people indulge rescue dogs because they feel bad for them. So instead of setting the tone of the behavior that they want and the relationship they want, they actually allow certain things to fester.
You know, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, it would certainly make sense. I mean, you know, Samson, our dog, he was a kick dog. Of course, you know, now as a dachshund, now he's having some back issues. But yeah, I could see where people think, oh, well, you know, poor puppy dog, we need to treat him differently. But how do you begin to you use the word re-record commands? How do you begin to do that?
Well, as an animal officer, I never knew what was the past for any of the dogs that I was working with. So instead, I just had to go with the future and set the tone right away. And I did that with this exciting exercise called the leadership exercise. And it's a simple way of putting yourself above your dog in status so that you become the leader and you become worth following, because you're going to keep your dog safe and you're going to be the security blanket for the dog. So it's detailed in the book, really easy to do once you learn how to do it. And I found that once I did that, and it takes 5 seconds once you learn, that I was able to handle all these dogs that I had no history on.
Well, and when you talk about, you know, being the leader, that's really what dogs are looking for, because, you know, they want to be the leader. You know, it was something as simple as, you know, right out of the gate, I do not allow my dog to lay on top of me. Plain and simple, because that shows that he is then in command of me. It's like,
We do a lot of things that are misconstrued by dogs, and I make a lot of distinctions between dogs and horses, and we have a much better idea with horses than we do with dogs. If you're going to learn how to ride a horse, we wouldn't call a horse trainer, you'd call a riding instructor, but with dogs we just have dog obedience, dog trainers. So the first issue is that we don't put ourselves into the mix as far as having to learn a skill. And the other thing that happens with horses is if you get bucked off a horse, the first thing people tell you to do is get back on. That means your skills and abilities need improvement. But with dogs, we have the opposite societal message, and that is if the dog is a problem, especially if the dog bites, that's to get rid of the dogs. So by getting rid of dogs that have issues or are a challenge for us, where our skills and abilities need to improvement, we actually end up with these lower-ranking, easy-to-handle for us dogs. And so we take all these liberties with them, and some of these dogs tolerate our things that we do that are really unsafe, that they don't really enjoy. And then we pay the consequence for that by doing some of these unsafe things with the wrong dogs, like hugging, for example. They don't like to be hugged. They don't hug each other. But we do it routinely, and I advise not to. And a lot of kids get bitten in the face just because they've done that.
Well, now, and that hugging thing, I mean, it doesn't matter what size of a dog we're talking about, does it?
It It doesn't at all. Dogs, because everybody's familiar with dogs are hierarchical animals. There's a pecking order. There's a leader of the pack. Nobody's equal. So just because they live with other dogs and they were designed to be in the wild, they see you as just another part of their dog group. So you're either above them in status or below them in status. And I teach families because I want to make sure that everybody has a good relationship with that dog. So if you're above the dog in status, they submit to what you're asking them, and they're willing to do it for you. If they think they're above you in status and you try to get them to do something, they see it as insubordination. So hugging a lot of times is seen as insubordination when especially a child does it. And it does not matter the breed or the size or the age of the dog. They don't like it.
Well, this goes back to what I said a little bit earlier, too. We're chatting with Melissa Berryman here this morning. The title of her book is People Training for Good Dogs. It's that simple thing of, not allowing even a small dog like Samson to get on top of you, because that basically puts that pecking order to place, correct?
It is. We want to make sure that the body language of the dog is the important thing. So just like, as you're saying, people let their dogs lie in their beds. Well, if you're not above the dog in status and the dog's in the bed with you, you roll over, the dog might snap at you. Or I've had people who have gone to the bathroom, they've come back, and the dog starts growling. That's a family that needs to work on their positioning with the dogs. And again, we got to put ourselves into the mix. You cannot buy behavior by selecting a breed.
Right. Hometown Radio, WACK, again chatting with Melissa Berryman. The website is melissaberryman.com. People Training for Good Dogs. We'll take a break here on the live line. Don't go away. More with Melissa, more of the live line straight ahead on Hometown Radio, WACK.
Don't touch that dial. Keep it right here for regular visits to radio's golden age. Join Greg Bell as he travels in time to the days when radio was.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, and yours truly, Don Wilson.
From Abbott and Costello.
Well, who's up first? Yeah. Well, go ahead and tell me. Who? The guy up first. Who? The guy up first. Who?
To X-1.
Good morning. Dr. Rustin here in the live line. We are chatting with Melissa Berryman. The title of her book is People Training for Good Dogs. The website, melissaberryman.com. Melissa, welcome back to Live Line. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me this morning. I'm enjoying it.
I was thinking during the break, and I actually jotted down, that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That really is not the case either, is it?
It's not. We have a lot of generalizations and stereotypes that we use with dogs, especially with breeds, but you can always teach a dog something. And in fact, they're inherent followers. They would love to have somebody who's more competent than them because it's less stressful for them to be the number one. So if your dog's really not complying with you and seems to be really obstinate, we really have to bring it. And once you do, they really want to please you.
Well, it's interesting as well. Up until we got Samson, we always had cats. And, of course, cats, I always say they were really not pets. They just kind of come around and run away when they want food. and so getting a dog was definitely different for us. And just as recent as about, maybe about 6 months to a year ago, Samson was always with our kids. Well, now we're empty nesters. And one of the first things that we wanted to do was say, you're not sleeping in our bed. So we got a little bed put beside our bed. We put him on my side because we knew that he liked to be close to me. And it took 2 nights for us just to keep saying, no, you're down, and moving him down there. And now it's I was going to say second nature for him. It's first nature for him. He knows when we're in there. He knows where he sleeps. And he's an old dog, and we taught him a new trick.
Yes, definitely. They love to, do what you'd like, and now it becomes reinforced, and they will be willing to follow your lead.
So how can we begin to break through? And I know you have some great tips in your book, but I think, is it safe to say that a lot of people, are kind of afraid of their dogs and love on them too much, and then they create their own problems? How can they begin to, re-record or deprogram the dogs, so to speak?
Well, I ran a shelter that was adopting dogs out for a while, and I'd ask people, why do you want a dog? And people would say for love and companionship and for unconditional relationship and for the kids. Nobody came into the shelter saying, I want an animal to dominate who will respect me for it. So there's a huge disconnect between what the dog needs and what we want to give. And the dogs are actually looking for a touchstone, somebody that they can rely on, and somebody that's tuned into their channel. They have the dog channel, and we have the human channel. So with the book, I was able to really talk about everything I wanted people to know. And as the animal officer, I saw everybody, anything that could go wrong. So I threw that all together so you'd have it in one place. And we really want to be thinking about dogs from their point of view. Everything they do is purposeful, and you can plan it out. You can predict what a dog's going to be doing in the two contexts, which is within their groups and outside of their groups. And you really can channel them by just paying attention.
Now, I'm pondering, when the boys were home before they moved out, I used to always joke, if we went away, my wife and I went away, we'd come back, and I always had to, retrain Samson how to go for a walk.
That's exactly why I teach everybody in the family when I teach. There's a lot of dog trainers, and I call myself a dog handling instructor, because when I'm teaching people, that's what I'm doing, and when I'm working with the dog, I'm training it. But everybody in the family has to work with the dog, and the trainers out there, a lot of them have one person in the family working with the dog, because everybody thinks it's about the dog needs to learn. But just like with horses, I can teach the horse to accept the rider, but does that mean you can ride it? And the answer is no. And if I teach you to ride, does that mean anybody in your family can ride? No. So everybody really needs to work on it, and that's what you were seeing there.
So when I would say to the kids, then I'd come back and say, come on, guys, I mean, why is it that, I could take him for a walk. If he sees another dog, I could just say, eyes forward, and he will ignore the dog. And even the little other miniature yappy dash hounds that are in my neighborhood now, I can walk with him and say, eyes forward, and he ignores them. But the kids, he would just go wild. And I would say to the kids, let him know that you're the boss and say the same thing. And say, oh, but it doesn't work that way. He respects you. But what you're saying is, had they said the same thing, they would have got the same result?
Right. They need to command respect, and that's something you need coaching for. There's some people who go, if they even go to class. So there's lots of people who don't go to class at all. And then some people go to class for a few weeks, a couple of hours of instruction. And sometimes these classes are in a pet store. That's not where you live. So you need the coaching to kind of step it up. And we've been culturally entrenched not to be commanding, because we see that as a negative, where the dogs see that as a positive, that you're strong enough to keep their group alive. And that's what they're really looking at. So your sons would have needed to kind of work on that with coaching.
Well, now they're out of the house, and I just have to worry about my wife, who
right.
can figure out why Samson will not fit where she wants him to sit, because you keep letting him get up beside you. You're sending mixed messages here.
That's perfect, yes.
Let's talk about dog bites and things like that, because I think that rises to the top. Actually, I just had a little mind bender that said most insurance claims are for dog bites. So you mentioned one. You have like top 5 reasons for dog bites. One, you said is because we hug them, which I never would have. I don't hug Samson because he pulls away, but that's one thing that causes dog bites. What other reasons do dogs bite people?
Okay, getting back to you, there's 2 contexts. So the reasons are in those 2 contexts. One of the contexts is within the group. So your dog has a relationship with you and your family and other animals that it knows, okay? And within their group, they're competitive. Nobody, if I threw a piece of meat out in a bunch of dogs, they would not cut it up in equal shares and pass it out. So they're competitive over their ranking, their position within their group, and they're also competitive over resources. So there's resources include food, toys, attention, somebody's giving attention, or places where they're sleeping. And so if you're above the dog in status, all the resources belong to you, and the dog should back off from them. But if the dog thinks it's above you in status and you go to try to pull it by the collar or take its toy or its food, they're going to admonish you, because like the military, they have generals and privates. And if you're insubordinate in the military, and the private's insubordinate to the general, then the general is going to punish the subordinate. And so that's where they might bite and snap and snip. And we don't want that, but we want to be aware of those situations where it would be normal for dogs. outside the group, you're looking at people who are not friends, okay? So people or animals can be considered, if they're not friends, foe or prey. And it's always how everything acts. Those entities act and how you act about approaching those entities, okay? And the other phenomenon is called fight or flight. And that is if the dog feels it's in imminent danger and it can't escape, it's going to bite to save itself.
Okay. So as we look at those things, and again, it kind of becomes the training mechanism that we need to move into. So let's talk about people coming over to the house. How do you begin to get your dog to recognize that it's a friend and not a foe coming in?
Okay, this is a great question. We have a tendency when we meet people we don't know to not be excited about it. And dogs need to have a lot of demonstrative voice and body language when they're meeting friends. That's why they get so excited when you come home, and they kind of whine, and they're looking for that. So say the pizza guy comes to the door. A lot of times we aren't saying, hey, it's the pizza guy when the doorbell rings. And the dog starts barking. And so then we admonish the dog for barking. And what we've actually done is the dog is barking because there's a stranger at the door. It's stuck in the house, okay? So it's stuck and it can't flee. And it starts barking, and all it does is hear us getting agitated as well. We open the door, dog goes right out and bites the pizza guy. Okay? So it's really important that we set the tone that people coming to the door, it's a happy thing. And you can, yourself, give your dog a treat so it conditions the dog that the people coming to the door, it's a good thing.
So will the dog begin to remember, and I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm gonna ask. So let's say, our son's girlfriend comes over on, on a regular basis. She comes in because she's got a key. Well, and if when she comes in, we get excited, and then something, and he kind of jumps around maybe a little bit too much because he kind of gets scared. Do we then reward him, and then will he remember her, and then we can stop with the rewards because he kind of says, "Oh, I know who this is. It's Megan."
Right, and it's important that she tell the dog that she's coming in. Even before she gets into the house, I start talking to the dog. She can do that as well, and she can get excited to see him. Now, each dog has a different reaction because we all are different, but you can work with that and condition your dog that everything's okay.
Hometown Radio, 1420 WACK. We are chatting with Melissa Berryman here this morning. The title of her book is People Training for Good Dogs. And again, the website is melissaberryman.com. Now, I jotted down here, pit bull. I think when people hear the word pit bull, they instantly get really, really scared. Is that, again, a misnomer, or is that a breed that we need to be afraid of?
This is a great thing to talk about because I grew up in the 70s, and which was the feared dog? It was the Doberman Pinscher. And who had heard of the pit bull? Or the Rottweiler? I don't think I'd even seen a Rottweiler in the 70s. And if you look at all the Our Gang films, who was Petey? Petey was a pit bull.
That's right.
So it really, we are the ones who kind of do this. We glam onto some sort of breed. The wrong types of people forward that breed as an extension of the machismo, and do wrong by them. And I will tell you, they're strong, powerful dogs, but they're still dogs.
Right.
When people see this pit bull, we have a tendency, because we think in the past and the future and not in the present where the dog is, we think, oh, something might happen. It's a pit bull. I should be afraid of this. Okay? And when you react that way, you're actually sending a message to a strange dog that you're prey. And so dogs are just animals, and when you push the prey button, you stimulate them to treat you like prey.
Well, that makes sense.
So as an animal officer, I've been charged by a lot of dogs. Okay? I know that the dogs don't see very well. Right. So I'm not taking it personally because I know they need to know from me if I'm friend, foe, or prey. And I have control of that.
We are all out of time here, and I guess this is a great place. It really becomes laying down the framework and saying, you know what, we're the ones in charge. You're not going to smell fear in me. Melissa, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Oh, you too. Appreciate it.
That is Melissa Berryman, and again, the website is melissaberryman.com. Title of her book is People Training for Good Dogs. That is it for the Liveline. News is next on WACK.